Hi everybody, welcome to Shock Factor series video number 9. And again in this video series, we shall be looking at the 9th hurdle in trying to apply technical analysis in the markets or to the markets. Okay, so this is video number 9, Shock Factor video number 9. There, I said it again. Okay, well, this is going to be a very interesting video indeed. And again, in this video, I shall be unveiling some stuff that is not explicitly obvious to many traders, but it is tremendously, significantly, seriously, phenomenally important that you understand what's going on in the world of speculation and trading, and also in investing. But it especially applies to speculative trading. Okay, or again, it's under the umbrella of directional trading. Some people claim there is something called non-directional trading. Well, I'll come to that topic. I will touch on that another Shock Factor video. Hopefully, I will try to break down, okay, the definition of non-directional. It is not as simple as what everyone thinks. It's not. So in this video, I'm going to talk about something that every trader hates. Okay, every trader, every speculator, every investor, short-term, long-term, scalper, whatever you are, every trader hates this four-letter word in trading. And that four-letter word is risk. This is going to be an interesting video. I try my best to make it as entertaining as possible, but it's a little bit hard when we're talking about such a serious topic, you know, a gravely serious topic. But risk. So what is it about risk? Well, there is nothing out there except risk in trading. Okay? There's nothing except risk. Risk is all there is. Okay, risk is all there is. Okay? Nothing more. Why do I say that? I'm not just, spouting out random words and statements. No, let me prove it to you. Okay, let me prove it to you. Again, risk is your greatest hurdle. It is your greatest hurdle, because I just want to confine our discussions to speculative trading. Okay, that's all. Let's keep it simple. So it's very probabilistic. Once something is probabilistic in nature, although you can control how much you lose when you lose in a trade, and you can control how much you win when you win in a particular trade, you still cannot control the number of wins and losses. That is where risk creeps into the equation and messes things up. Okay, so let's carry on. So it is a short word composed of 4 letters, 4 alphabets, and but yet it's the most shocking of all. Okay, so let's press on. So I'm going to talk about the law of conservation of risk, and all there is risk. Let me explain to you what this is. Okay, so let's press on to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to talk about the risk profile right now. Okay, so I just want to get it out of the way. A risk profile is some components that I've identified, okay, that is associated with risk in the market. Okay, in fact, let me just be very clear here. Every single component is associated with risk. There's no component associated with the opposite of risk. None whatsoever. Because don't forget, remember in one of our earlier Shock Factor videos, I mentioned the only principle we can apply when we're looking at money management, risk control, and all that stuff is the principle of applying the worst case scenario. We must never apply the best case scenario. It is really of no use to us. You must always apply. And what do I mean by applying the worst case scenario? It's to whatever systems that you're using, or positions that you're in, or potential entries that you want to make. It's because you need to know what is the worst outcome. If that outcome materializes and manifests itself, what are your options? What is your next step? How do you address this issue? How do you redress this issue? How do you handle it? How do you mitigate it? How do you attenuate it? How do you do anything? or just give up, surrender, and let risk do its job? So these are awesome questions to ask. Okay, they're awesome questions to ask. Now, okay, let's start. So this is a simplified version. Okay, as I said, we have something that I refer to as positional risk. We have something called dollar risk and something called target risk. But I prefer the more complicated version. For the sake of a YouTube video, I don't have the time to go into complexity. Okay, and we are not here for a masterclass in rocket science. We're here for a way to understand everything in a simple way. Okay, let's carry on. What is positional risk? Well, it represents the higher probability of a stop loss being hit, triggered, or taken out. So if there's a higher probability or higher chance that a stop loss is going to be hit, that is positional risk. That means you have a higher positional risk, a higher risk whereby your stop loss position may be taken out. So for example, if you have two setups, one setup where the stop loss is, well, pretty far away, okay, and another one where it's pretty close to the entry, the stop loss, which is in close proximity to the entry, that is the one that will possess higher positional risk. That means there is a higher chance for that setup to experience a stop out. The market might take the stop out. Okay. Dollar risk. Dollar risk is very simple. It's just the amount that you risk per trade. Okay. The amount that you risk per trade. That's all. All right. Again, this is a risk, obviously. You do not really intend to lose capital, unless you have no choice. And normally it's beyond your powers to control this. Well, you can set your stop loss and your position size, and whatever that comes to, well, that's it, you see. And that's only for stocks. For currencies, you got to multiply by the pip value to get the actual dollar risk. Okay, so the distance multiplied by the size of the position multiplied by the pip value. In stocks, you don't care. There's no such thing as any kind of pip value or anything like that. It makes things much easier. So in today's calculations, I will not use pip value as part of it. Let's treat it as equity, as stock. Okay, as stock or ETFs, whatever you want. Okay, and finally, we have target risk. You have higher target risk. That means you have higher risk resulting from a lower potential in earning power. So if your setup has a lower potential in earning power, you have a higher target risk. That means there's a high risk of not reaching your target, the amount that you wanted to make. Okay, this is the problem. This is why I refer to it as the simplified version. It's only 3 components. Okay, because in the actual version there's 4. I'll show you the 4 just briefly. The 4 components, original version, in the next slide, okay, just to make things clear, just to give you a sense of comparison, for you to contrast and compare. Okay, so here we have 3 risks that we have identified that we're going to talk about in this. Well, I'll try to make it a short video if I can, because I always ramble on a little bit too much. Mr. Over-Deliver, they call me. Anyway, so again, let me just clarify. This is actually 2 different types of risks, 2 different components. I just bung it all into one, okay? Actually, it consists of 2. One is called profit risk, okay? And the other is another positional risk, but it's based on the take profit. So now let me explain in the 4-component version, so it might be easier for you to understand. This is the 4-component version. These 2 components here, the profit risk and positional risk, I've combined them into target risk just for this video. So that's easier for me to explain the risk profile. I don't want to go into the 4-component version in this video because it's going to get too cumbersome, and for YouTube video, it doesn't make sense. Again, you fully understand everything using the 3-component version, unless you love challenges, okay? Okay, let's carry on. So again, positional risk, the higher the positional risk, the higher chance your stop loss might be hit, and that's not a good thing because that will immediately bring you much closer to experiencing dollar risk. Okay, and then target risk is all to do with your ability to make more money in that setup or not. Okay, so I'm going to go to the 4-component version to explain everything clearly. Okay, now I'm going to delve a little bit deeper. So just to make things very clear. So this is the actual version that we should be talking about, but it's too long for a YouTube video. So I'm just going to be using, the simple version, okay? So both profit and positional risk, will be combined into something I call target risk. The risk of whether you are able to hit your target or not in terms of absolute dollar amounts or whatever it is, whatever percentage, or in the other form of it, in a more mechanical form, that is in dollar form or percentage form. The other form is position risk in terms of the distance you have to traverse, the distance the market has to traverse from your entry in order to trigger the take profit. The further away it is, the higher chance you may not get there. Okay? So therefore, positional risk based on the stop loss, and the dollar risk, which again is associated with how far your stop loss is and your position size or your lot size. It all has to do or associated with your stop size. That means your risk that you put in the trade. The risk whenever you open a position. I call it explicit risk because everyone can understand. When you lose money, well, you can't get more explicit than that. When it hits your stop loss, you can't get more explicit than that. Everyone understands you have lost money, or everyone or whoever is in that position would have or will have lost money. Okay, so explicit, simple, clear, totally obvious, significantly obvious, intuitive, nothing to dispute here. On this side is another story. Here, this is, I call it profit risk. It's opposite to dollar risk because this has everything to do with your take profit. And this has everything to do with your stop size. This, on this side, has everything to do with your take profit size. Okay? How far your take profit? How large is your take profit? How far is it from your entry? Okay? So they are polar opposites. In a sense, not 100%, because they all still belong to the same family. And that family is risk. They all represent risk. All represent risk. Nothing else. There is nothing else except risk. There's no such thing as reward. It is a form of risk. What kind of risk? Implicit risk. Why? Let me explain. Position risk indicates the probability that your stop loss is hit. The higher the positional risk, the higher chance your stop loss may be triggered or hit or taken out. This might seem like the opposite side of things. R means your reward. This is risk. Small for me, if you understand the way I annotate things, small r always stands for risk. R stands for reward in your setup. The reward that the distance of your take profit and your lot size, that determines your reward. Okay, so profit risk is the higher your profit risk means the higher chance or the higher the probability you will not be able to make as much money as you intended, as you hope. You might exit early before the take profit or whatever the reason is. Who knows? Okay, so you don't make as much as you. The higher profit risk means the lower your potential earning power. Okay, this has all to do with your lot size. The bigger your lot size, the higher chance you can earn more. The smaller your lot size, the lower chance that you can earn more. And this also has everything to do with your take profit. Okay, the higher the positional risk with respect to the take profit means there is a higher probability or chance that your take profit may not be hit, may not be taken out, may not be fulfilled, well, may not be triggered, or your take profit could be pretty close to your entry. But it just so happened that wasn't your day. The market was totally unfriendly and it moved adversely, unfavorably in the opposite direction. Just before hitting your take profit, just before triggering, it came so close, okay? So that's positional risk. The higher the positional risk with respect to your take profit means the higher chance or the higher the probability that your take profit may not be hit. And usually the reason is because you have placed a take profit that's much further away. That's all. So the market has to work much harder, travel much further to give you what you want or what you expect. And that is always a risk. So this may not appear as risk because we're talking about profit. The word profit is right there in front of you. Position, this is about take profit. Your take profit order, your take profit mechanism is there, set in place. Normally it's a pending order. Some traders exit manually all over the place, okay, whatever. But it's all to do with profit. But yet, this is all risk. Can you see that? But I don't call it explicit risk. This is explicit. This is implicit risk. Why? Why is that? Can you remember? Because we are now trying to apply the worst case scenario principle. What if you can't make enough? What if it doesn't hit your take profit? We have to apply that. And once we see things from the worst case scenario point of view, everything converts into risk. Everything. No such thing as reward here. That's just an imaginary concept. It is risk. Let me just tell you. You're delving into a sea of risk when you trade, into an ocean of risk all around you. Every single component represents risk. I don't see any other component that is unrepresentative of risk. No, I see everything as risk. Can you see it now? Can you see what I see? This is the realistic way to understand the components of risk. All right, this is the right way. Now, going back. Let me just go back there. I'm gonna just combine both of this into I just call it target risk. Okay, just for the sake of convenience. Otherwise, we're going to take all day sitting here watching YouTube videos. Okay, which is not a bad thing. Better than doing other things in life, I guess. Okay, all right. So let's carry on now. Since you have a full understanding, I did a complete semi-detailed explanation of all the components. Let's go back to the 3-component simplified version, and let's press on now with the rest of this video, and let us get into the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty stuff. All right, let's go. All there is risk. That's why I made this statement earlier. So this is all we have to play with. This is all we have to manage. And it's a tough job if you don't understand how risk works, how risk is conserved. Once risk is conserved, just like in physics, the law of conservation of energy, you cannot destroy energy, but you can transfer it or you can convert it from one form to another, either partially or fully or whatever. Normally there's no full conversion, but partially. Okay, but it's similar to the law of conservation of energy in physics. Similar. Here we have the law of conservation of risk. So that means similarly, okay, by analogy as well, similarly, logically, you cannot destroy risk. No matter what you do, you cannot. It is always going to be there. The moment you open up your trading platform, you start analyzing the charts, you are analyzing risk. That's all. That's all there is. Nothing else. You got to understand this first before you start trading, because too many people jump into the market like completely blinded by optimism and applying the best case scenario, and start calculating, and start thinking about all the wonderful things that they're going to start buying after they make so much money. Trust me, not that simple. If you've traded long enough, you know this. Euphoria has no place in the world of trading. Okay? Caution. Being very circumspect. Don't get too excited. You got to do an awesome job in trading. You got to be clinical. You got to follow your rules. And if your rules are not working, you got to find out why they're not working. And you may not be able to ever find out why your rules are not working if you don't understand some of the non-intuitive parts that are not normally talked about, like what I'm doing in this Shock Factor series. Certain things, certain concepts, certain phenomena. Let's call it phenomena. It's not concept. These are all real stuff. Certain phenomena in the market that if you don't understand the phenomena and you don't know how to resolve it, just like in Shock Video 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, now it's 9. If you cannot resolve all those, you don't know how to handle it, you don't know how to at least mitigate some of the issues discussed, how are you able, with full conscience, actually risk your own capital in the market? Are you able to do that? Honestly, think about it. As a rational human being, I see too many people fail too fast. A lot of the dangers are hidden dangers. You can't see it. And if you can see it, you might not be able to understand it. So it's not always just about learning oscillators, indicators, all that. Honestly, really, can all that solve any of the shock factor questions that I've posed to you over the last 9 videos, including this, of course? Can a MACD solve any of these problems? Can Elliott wave solve any of these problems? Can any form of technical analysis, and I say any form. Okay, let me go back to this again. There's no form of technical analysis that can avoid this. None of it. Let me reassure you, 125%. None. There's no technical method or approach that can overcome what I'm talking about here. None. Zero. So all of us, we are slave to risk. Yes. As traders, we are slave to risk. In fact, just living on the planet, just breathing and staying alive, we are already facing risk every single day. To make things worse, we become a trader. As if we don't have enough risk. Okay, so let's press on. Okay, all right, let's go. So now the next thing I want to talk about very quickly, which again is already taken too long, is something called risk transference. So again, I've simplified this into the 3-component profile here. Risk cannot be destroyed, but it can be transferred. It can be converted from one risk to another. So for example, let's assume we have positional risk. Yes, we can convert that into dollar risk, or at least transfer it into dollar risk, or at least some part of it, and we can convert it or transfer it, some part of it, into target risk. But we cannot transfer it into both at the same time. Not in this version anyway. So just think, okay, let me just simplify this. Any risk here can only be transferred to one of the other risks, that's all. And one of it will remain neutral. It won't be affected. So only a one-to-one transfer is allowed. That is how it works. By way of mathematics, there's no way you can change this. I call it the law of risk transference under the umbrella of the law of conservation of risk. I mean, do you feel like you're doing a physics course now? But we're talking about risk energy instead of other forms of energy like kinetic, potential, all that stuff. Okay, but we're talking about risk energy. So positional risk energy can be transferred into either one, this or this, and dollar risk can be transferred either to this or this. Either one. It's only a one-to-one. And target risk can be transferred either to this or this. Not both. All right, based on this model. Okay, so this will give you a great understanding. Risk energy is transferred between position, dollar, and target is because of the law of conservation. You cannot destroy risk. You can't destroy it. You can't get rid of risk energy. Risk energy will always be there. Always. So let's press on to the next slide. Okay. So this is the risk profile. But there is something else you can do about this. Yes. You're not just stuck in risk. This kind of risk, which is the worst kind of risk. You have a better kind of risk. There is a better way, as they say. I just want to put it simply. This is a very raw form of risk. It is very damaging, and it affects you in the worst possible way. It affects the trader's trading account, the trader's long-term survivability very badly. But there is another kind of risk that is outside this area, okay? That doesn't have all this stuff going on, or at least not most of it, maybe a little bit of it, but it's a much better form of risk. This is the risk that we want to evolve, mainly to adopt a new kind of risk in most of our setups, if possible. But let me just say again, all these components still represent risk, but this is a better form of risk as compared to this kinds of risk. This kinds of risk, or this old risk profile, I call it. And now we can adopt a new one, but you have to transition from here to here. And there are a few mechanisms that you can use to transition. There are actually 4 mechanisms that you can use to transition from this kind of very damaging risk energy into the new form of risk. Okay? Again, I'll give you the name for this. It's called opportunity risk. That's right. You don't want to be in this. You don't want to hang around here, over here, having dollar risk, having target. You just want to get out of all this as soon as possible. What you want is to, for the most part, is to try to evolve all the setups eventually into a state of having only opportunity risk. That's it. Okay? All right? That's all. This is where you want to be. Not here. Not here. You want to be here. And once you're here, there are things that you have to do. Since now you have adopted a new form of risk for most of your setups, once you can transition them, once you can transition your setups, I'm not saying that you can always do it. Sometimes you cannot. Okay? Your main purpose in trading is to get away from this kind of components of risk into this new form of risk. This is where you want to be most of the time, not here. Okay? If you dwell in this area, well, you can expect hell. Dwell to hell. Okay, I'm just joking. Anyway, sometimes I'm a bit too dramatic. Do forgive me, please. Okay, but I'm just saying. Sometimes I'm a little bit extreme. You know why? Because I want to convey the point clearly. I will make a big impression so that you can remember this. Okay, so today I'm delving into a different area. I'm talking about risk. Risk is fascinating. Let me just tell you. Okay, it's fascinating because sometimes it looks like reward. It looks like an opportunity, but it's not. You're still risk. At the end of the day, everything is risk. But this is a better form of risk. Okay, so let's press on. Okay, let's look at the first case. Okay, the first case. This is for fixed lot sizing. Let's assume that in all these examples, you're only going to use a fixed lot. That's it, fixed lot. All right? Okay, so let's press on with the rest of the slide. Now, let's assume this is all fixed lots. Fixed lots, okay? So it's fixed lot sizing, okay? Your lots are always fixed. That's the way you size your lots. Fixed lot sizing. Okay, let's carry on. So let's consider a simple basic setup. Let's assume you enter a position where you buy 100 shares. I'm talking about equity now, okay? Not Forex. You buy 100 shares with a stop loss $100 away. So what is your risk? 100 multiplied by 100, you risk $10,000. This is your stop loss here. $100 away from your entry. Here you went long at 100. You bought 100 shares. So what is your dollar risk? How much are you risking? Dollar risk, 10K. Because your trade size or your share size is 100 shares, your stop size is $100 away, your stop size is $100, you multiply that, you get your risk, dollar risk, which is 10K. So you risk 10K. Okay, this is your baseline. Okay, good enough. We understand that. Let's press on to setup A. Now, setup A is similar. You buy 100 shares, no difference. Okay, but this time your stop loss is $200 away. So therefore, you risk much more. 100 shares multiplied by 200, you risk 20K. So your dollar risk, the number of dollars you're risking is 20K. Simple, right? No rocket science. Anybody, even a baby can understand. Well, not maybe a baby, unless it's a baby with a high IQ. Genius baby. Gen IQ or something you can call it. I don't know. But anyway, so here your dollar risk is higher. What about your position risk? The probability that your stop loss is maybe taken out or triggered. Well, it's definitely much lower than this because this is closer. So this is much further. So there is a lower probability that your stop loss will be hit. On average, everything else being equal. So your positional risk, remember your positional risk, the probability that your stop loss is being hit, your positional risk is lower. Lower. Okay, as compared to the baseline model, is lower. How about your target risk, your earning power? The risk of not earning enough, or the risk of not having the potential to have a higher earning power. Well, it's still 100 shares. Same earning power as the original baseline setup or baseline model. Same. So earning power is the same, no difference. What about this one, setup B? Again, you buy 100 shares, but now your stop loss is really close. It's only $50 away. Okay, so now you risk 5K. You only risk 5K. Trade size, that means 100 shares multiply, or share size, I should have written share size, multiply by stop size, $50, you get 5K. So here you risk 5K, much lower than what you risk here. So your dollar risk is lower. Position risk is higher. Your stop loss is closer, higher chance of getting taken out. And that's not good. Because if there's a higher chance of being taken out, there's a higher chance you're going to lose money as well. But you lose less because you risk less. So your dollar risk is lower as compared to setup A. Your positional risk is higher as compared to setup A. And your target risk remains equal. No change. Because you know why? It's still 100 shares. The earning power The potential to earn is still the same based on 100 shares. If the market moves up favorably with respect to your long position, you make money. Equal power is this. All of them have the equal earning power. So the target risk, the risk of not reaching your potential earning power is still the same. There's no change. So you notice something's going on here, right? You notice something. One risk, in the three-component model, of course, we're talking about the three-component model. One risk will always remain equal. The other two will transfer back and forth between each other. That means one will go higher, the other must go lower. They all cannot go higher. They all cannot go lower, while one remaining equal. Not possible. Not possible. Not possible. Okay, let me show you one more setup here before we carry on. So again, sorry, let's forget this slide. Let's go to the next. Now we're going to talk about the situation where we use a fixed percentage sizing approach. That means we risk a percentage. Okay, a percentage. So whatever we risk is going to be the same amount. It doesn't matter how big your stop loss is. It doesn't matter how big your stop loss is or how small your stop size is. The amount, the dollar amount is going to be the same because you're going to risk the same percentage of your capital. Okay, I want to keep things simple because a percentage of your current capital and initial capital, they are two totally different things. This is not the place to talk about that. But okay, let's assume that we risk a certain percentage of your capital, whatever it is. So if this is 10K, setup B must also be 10K because it's the same percentage of your capital. Okay, assuming your capital is 100K, assuming just for fun. Here you're risking 10%, which is 10K. Here you're still risking 10%, which is 10K. Baseline model, still risking 10K, which is 10% of your 100K. So in terms of percentage sizing, they all have the same percentage risk, same percentage. So the dollar risk will be equal. 10K, 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 no change. Okay, is that all right? Okay, let's come back to the baseline model. So here we risk 10K. Let's assume this is 10% of our capital. Okay, our capital is 100K, let's say. So here you risk 10K. Okay, fair enough. So this is your baseline. All right, stop size or your stop loss is $100 away. In this setup A, because the stop loss has increased in size, the stop size has increased, we have to reduce our lot size or our share size so that we still maintain the 10K because this cannot change. It's a fixed percentage of your capital. All of them have the same 10% risk, for example. I know 10% is too high, but it's just for illustration purposes. So here you have to readjust it to downwards to 50. So now it makes sense. 50 multiplied by 200, sorry, you get 10K. Okay, fair enough. Setup B the same. Since your stop size is much smaller, you can increase your lot size or your share size. Multiply both of this together, you also get 10K. So your dollar risk is the same throughout all three. Baseline, setup A, and setup B. Now let's analyze the risk profile. So in this case, okay, here, since your dollar risks are all the same, your dollar risk, where is that? Your dollar risk target, it remains neutral. It doesn't change. It remains flat. The risk remains flat. Risk profile flat, doesn't change because we're based on this approach. How about your positional risk? Well, this one, on setup A, your position is much lower because it's much further. So there's a lower probability or chance that your stop loss is taken out as compared to the baseline. So position risk is lower. This one is much closer. It's only $50 away. So the positional risk is higher, obviously. So this goes down, this goes up. Remember, if position risk on one side goes down, the other goes up. But one must remain neutral. And what about the target risk? The earning power, the potential earning power, the risk of not being able to earn enough in a short period of market movement or whatever. This has only 50 shares. This has 200. This has much higher earning power. Okay? So the target risk is lower. The risk of not reaching your amount that you want to achieve or attain is much lower. You have a higher earning power. It's much easier to reach your target. This is much harder. You only have 50 shares. So your target risk, the risk of not reaching your target is so much higher. So can you see? Again, you notice something. One of the risk components have to remain flat or neutral. The other two will invert, will be inversely correlated. One goes down, the other goes up. One goes up, the other goes down. Has to be. Okay. Similarly, in the 4-component model, that also will occur, but it's a little bit more complicated. I'll just show you the 3-component model, so it's easier for you to understand. So therefore, that brings us to this. I'll simplify everything. You have 6 profiles in the 3-component model. 6 profiles. When one goes down, the other goes up. One must remain flat. But when this one goes up, that one must go down. Dollar risk must go down, but target risk remains flat. If positional risk goes down and dollar risk is flat, that means target risk must go up. If position risk goes up, dollar risk remains flat, target risk must come down. If position risk remains flat, dollar risk goes down, target risk must go up. And finally, if positional risk remains flat, and if dollar risk goes up, target risk must go down. There's nothing you can do about this. This is how it works. But what is the bottom line? Let me just ask you, let's look at the big picture. You have not removed risk. Risk is still there. You're just converting from one form of risk to another, but you still have risk. You're still swimming in the ocean of risk. Have you gotten rid of risk? Have you improved your setup or your position or your trading system towards a more mitigated form of risk? You're just shifting risk around. You have not improved anything in your position. You have not gained any advantage in any sense whatsoever. None. Total risk is still conserved. It's still same. You still have the same risk in the system. It's just converting from one form to one component or one form to another form of risk energy. That's all. From positional, you just transfer a little bit more to dollar, transfer a little bit more to target, you transfer a little bit more back to positional. That's all. You're just shifting the dust around. But it's the same amount of dust in the system. Isn't it shocking? The ninth hurdle in trying to apply technical analysis, or in fact, in this form, in this video, imply any analysis to the market. Forget technical analysis. It can be any form, even other forms of analysis. Yes, that's right. Except maybe for arbitrage. Again, let me just say, we're talking about directional risk. That means when you trade, the direction matters. If a market moves in an adverse direction, you will lose money. So that's called directional risk, okay? Or a directional approach to trading. Again, I have a book out. It's called Vibrational Trading. I mean, I'm just saying that is a different form. It's non-probabilistic. It's deterministic. Totally different from money management. We don't care about winning percentage. All that doesn't exist. It's irrelevant. So we cannot apply. There's no such thing as positional risk, dollar risk, and target risk in vibration. It doesn't exist. It's irrelevant. Okay? Because there's no such thing as expectancy. There's no such thing as minimum win percent. All that goes out the window. Okay? But there are other things that you need to account for. So there are other sacrifices that you have to make in order to enjoy those kind of luxuries. Okay, but again, in this short series, I'm talking about speculative trading. What most 90% of traders do out there. Okay? So, okay, I think that's about enough, long enough. So again, welcome to the world of risk. Hope you gained a little bit of understanding. Again, the whole point is this. The whole point is this. Let me get to this. How do we get to this point and try to move away as soon as possible from all this and live in this environment with a new risk profile? The risk profile where it's more favorable to you as a trader. How do we migrate from here to there? Using what mechanisms? How do we do that? Well, there's a subject for another day. I'm sorry, because it is called the Shock Factor series. So this series is just to shock. It's not to give solutions. But yes, I know, once in a while I give a little bit of hint here and there. But again, I have to stay true to what the series is trying to impart, and is to impart a sense of awakening by shocking traders out, everyone out there, or traders in a nice way, shocking traders in a nice way, to understand that things are not so obvious. A lot of things we think we understand, but we don't really get the full picture. We might understand, each trader have a different degree of understanding, of comprehension. That's great. But as we evolve, things get worse actually, not better. The more you learn, the worse it gets. You reach a point that you just want to give up. And then suddenly, for some unknown reason, okay, you have a quantum leap in understanding. Suddenly one day you wake up, okay, now it makes sense, but it's hard to tell when that can happen. To each person, his own, and everyone is different. Okay, so anyway, thank you for joining me in this video. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. Sorry if I've upset anybody by introducing more anxiety into the system of understanding, but that is the purpose of these videos. Okay, not meant to offend anybody, not meant to hurt anyone, meant to give the brutal truth. That's what it's all about, giving the brutal truth. The medicine is always bitter, yes, but you have to take it and you get better. From bitter to better. All right, thank you for joining me in this video. Again, I shall show you the next video very shortly, but until then, take care, be safe, and bye-bye.